Hello there everybody, Sam Strings here and welcome back to the railway. Today, with great interest, I am reviewing KR Model's latest brand new locomotive. I want to apologise for the delay in getting this review out to you. Well, it wasn't my delay, but nevertheless, I had hoped to get this review out to you before Christmas, but of course Christmas came and Christmas went and no loco. But it's here now, and that's the main thing. So today we are looking at this, the brand new KR Model's Bulleid Leader locomotive, better late than never. Or at least I sincerely hope so, because having seen some of the horror stories posted by people who have already received this model, I think for them never might have been preferable. But still, all I can do is hope that this model of mine is okay. So I actually pre-ordered and paid for this model in full at £185 over 2 years ago now. And I needn't have done that because they're available right now at Rails of Sheffield to order for the same price, £185. So all I actually got by pre-ordering this was slower delivery and the privilege of parting with my money much sooner than I really needed to. So I won't be doing that again, at least not with KR models. Yeah, as you can probably tell, I'm a bit done with this whole model already, but obviously it needs a fair chance, just like every loco deserves, so it's going to get that today. So what is this like? Was it worth the wait? Was it worth the money? All questions that I'm desperate to learn the answers to. So if you'd like to try one of these for yourself, don't know if I recommend that yet, check out the review first, I would. I do have affiliate links down in the description, but for now, let's get this out and let's get this over with. Alright, so first of all, credit where credit's due. I love the packaging design. We've got a sturdy box here, lovely bit of artwork on the front. It looks very presentable, I think. Anyway, let me show you the end of the box. So this is, I'm not seeing a product number, it is the Leader DCC Ready Crest. What? Right, I'll translate, since apparently the box can't even explain what's inside. So this is in the prototype grey livery, and it does have a crest, but it's the BR Early crest, not a DCC Ready crest, because if it said DCC Ready on the side of the loco, that would be ruinous. But anyway, enough of that. Let's get into this. I don't think there's really anything else to read on the box. So let's open her up and let's see what we get. Blimey, this has been a long time coming. Right, so yeah, like I say, quality packaging, lots of foam here to cushion the model, which is there it is. What an incredibly unusual locomotive, and yeah, the story of this loco is absolutely fascinating, and I will talk all about it in a little while. Anyway, I want instructions first, so let's pull that out. I must say, oh, that feels very, very heavy. Right, Oliver Bulleid, the Leader. Let's have a quick look at this then. Nice little booklet here. So, the Leader. So we've got actually a fair bit of information here with photos about the Leader in real life. That's awesome. And then on the back, a bit of a drawing of the real thing there. Yeah, that's interesting. I love looking at things like that. Okay, and then hopefully this will be instructions for the model. Yep. It's very, very brief. So one half of it is the list of functions, which is useful for those on digital. And then on the back, I guess this is the extent of the instructions. Right, to open the locomotive for any servicing purposes, please unclip the body gently from the sides. Okay, so it's clipped on. Be aware of delicate parts. Okay, to install a DCC decoder, remove 3 screws, flip up the PCB to gain access to the socket. Right. That's odd. Why is it underneath the circuit board? But it is a Plux 22 socket. That's useful information. Advisable to run in the locomotive for 20 minutes forwards and in reverse without a load for the first time. Well, I'll do it for 30, so that should be more than enough then. Clean rails are essential. Yeah, the main worm gear and gearbox has all been pre-lubricated. Shouldn't need to be serviced. it will need to be serviced after some amount of time. That's not true. We recommend using Deluxe Materials Locomotion Loco Oil for any axle lubrication needs. Please use sparingly to avoid getting on the wheels. Yes, that's true. All right, well, very brief. So that leaves most of what the Loco has to offer, I suppose, to me to find out, which I am more than happy to do. Right, Bulleid leader time then. Let's have a look at the accessories to start with. Again, the instructions didn't mention these at all, and we've got no exploded diagram. So, oh, yeah, can't get to those. I'll have to get those in just a second because they're in with the Loco. So, ready for the reveal? Here we go. Opening the box. Let's see what the finish is like. Right. Well, that's odd. That's odd. The finish is definitely not grey. And it should be, as far as I know. Yeah, this is more silver. It's even got sort of tiny metallic particles in it. So, yeah, why this is silver and it was described as grey, I'm not entirely sure. The other thing that's distracting is the coal load. It looks awful. Can you see that? Why is it fitted at an angle? Why is there a chunk missing out of it? And why does it poke out so far? If I turn the Loco on its side, yeah. Let's hope this Loco never went under a bridge, eh, folks? Otherwise it'd lose half of its coal. Anyway, let's lift it up because it does feel remarkably heavy. Yes, it is. Goodness gracious. All right, yeah. This thing weighs a lot, an awful lot. And yeah, it's an odd looking Loco. I mean, it looks like a diesel, frankly. I think if you hadn't heard of the leader and you saw this, you'd say, what an odd looking diesel. But of course, no. This is a steam locomotive. Technically, I guess, a tank engine. Yeah, that is why this locomotive was always going to be of interest to people. The strangest tank engine. It feels wrong. It feels like I'm going to get corrected calling this a tank engine. But it really did carry its water on board, so there would be tanks in there. And it is a steam locomotive, so yeah, fascinating. Now, one thing I do want to check is the wheels, because this is what I've heard the horror stories about, wheels being loose. Yeah, there you go. Look at that. Oh, for goodness sake. So that leaves me with a bit of a conundrum, because I doubt the Loco is going to work with that. But also, if I try to fix it and then something else goes wrong, I would jeopardize my chances of getting this returned. So I don't know if I'm going to be able to run this. I'll certainly try. But yeah, because of that, I will be sending this back, I reckon. And not for a replacement either. Yeah, that's insane. Any others? No. No. So out of the box, we've just got one wobbly wheel, and this is not a one-off. Lots of reports of this online, so yeah, faulty models yet again. It's unfortunate, but I have to say not surprising from KR models. Like I say, I find them quite unscrupulous, let's be frank, and so I'm not surprised at all that there has been no quality control to speak of, at least not quality control sufficient enough to catch that issue. Anyway, let me just put that to one side, and we'll look at that in just a second. Let's have a look and see what we actually get in terms of accessories. So in the first bag, we've got a couple of Instanta couplings. So that's a nice inclusion, to be fair. You can put those onto the coupling hooks if you like. And then the other bag has some route indicator discs, which appear to fit onto the lamp brackets. So that's a nice feature. And a couple of NEM tension locks so that you can couple other rolling stock. All right, so that's everything you get. Let's have a bit of background on the Bulleid leader in real life, and then we'll take a much closer look at this model and what it has to offer. The Southern Railway leader class was an experimental steam locomotive, like I say, for which development began pre-nationalisation in the Southern Railway era, but it wouldn't be complete until 1949 after the nationalisation into British Railways. The idea was to try and extend the life of the steam era by revolutionising the design of the steam locomotive to bring about numerous improvements, namely cabs at both ends of the locomotive and enclosed cabs at that for added comfort, plus innovative bogies which still seem very unusual, frankly, for a steam locomotive today. These bogies each had 3 cylinders driving the wheels via chains, and the smokebox, boiler and firebox were all encased within steel sheeting, giving the Leader the look of a diesel locomotive rather than a steam one. Though the Leader was technically a tank engine with an 060 plus 060T wheel configuration, which allowed the locomotive to spread the load of its weight over a large number of wheels to maximise route availability. The future seemed bright for the idea, and as such 5 Leaders were started, but only one, this one, was completed. This was because of a large number of issues. The loco wasn't very efficient, it consumed more water and coal than expected, and obviously the issue of consuming more water meant that more stops were necessary to fill the thing up. It was also unreliable, the brake release was too slow for nimble operation, and despite the closed cabs, the working conditions for drivers and firemen were poor, with apparently flames entering the cab from the firebox at times. That sounds fun. The Leader wasn't a total failure though, it steamed extremely well and the traction was decent as a result of the 2 bogies. Sadly though, the design never caught on, and the standard locomotives that would be eventually commissioned by British Railways were nothing like the Leader. The one Leader that was completed was scrapped in 1951 along with the other members of the class which had been started. And very sadly, here ends the story of the Bulleid Leader. So there she is, up close and personal for you, the all-new Bulleid Leader from KR Models. And I have to admit I was wrong about this. This is actually a delightful model. And that's also a lie. Note, this model is exactly what it looks like, a bit naff. Now, I will say this, the model is pretty heavy, and if loco weight was the sole means by which we measured the qualities of a model, this would be among the greats, because it weighs in at 627 grams, which is somewhere between a Hornby Class 60 and a Bachmann Class 40. So yes, it's very, very heavy indeed. But of course, unfortunately, we require more than models to be heavy in order for them to be decent. And yeah, as far as I'm concerned, this is far from decent. Now, I have to say I'm no expert on the prototype, but it has been demonstrated to me by those who are that this model has quite a few inaccuracies. So the big one would be the wheels. Yeah, the wheels are entirely wrong on this model. Now, Southern Railway expert Graham Muspratt on the various forums posted a great photo showing that the wheels on the Leader should have had sort of webbing, whereas here you can see we've just got large gaping holes going right through the wheels, which is such a shame. Bulleid wheels were so incredibly unusual in real life. They were iconic, in fact, and when done properly in model form, they can look wonderful. So the fact that improper research has been done and the model's wheels look like this is such a pity. And apparently KR Models were made aware of this, and yet here are the wheels that we see on the model. The other thing is the buffer beams. Yeah, why are the buffer beams black? Even the photos that KR Models provided in the booklet with the model show that the buffer beams were red, and yet for some reason on the model they're black. Now the buffer housings themselves, those are red, which looks very strange indeed, but the buffer beams have been left black. We've got the colour. Yeah, this is definitely described as photographic grey, but it's more of a metallic silver. Maybe I'm the stupid one, but yeah, that doesn't make sense to me. The coal load is insane. First of all, why is it poking out so far from the top of the model? Because if the real thing was loaded up like that, every bump or every gust of wind would cause them to lose their coal. Also, the quality of the coal load is very poor. It doesn't fit into the coal bunker properly. There's large gaps around it. Some of the coal clumps are absolutely massive, and if these were to scale, they'd be larger than the size of somebody's head, in fact about the size of 2 human heads. So yeah, can you imagine shoveling lumps of coal the size of 2 heads into a firebox? Yeah, it doesn't sound very efficient, does it? And yet, believe it or not, this is actually a better example of the KR Models Bulleid Leader coal load. Some of the photos I've seen make them look absolutely dreadful. And it doesn't appear to be removable either. Yeah, this is very much stuck down. With enough force, I might be able to get it off, but it has been stuck down as if in punishment for anybody that wants to have realistic coal in their locomotives. You may not. You will have this instead. Goodness. The quality of the model is also relatively poor. There's lots of visible glue, as you can see. Yeah, it's quite messily presented, unfortunately, and there's also this, What is this? A dried bogey? It looks like maybe a bit of dry pus. Looks almost a bit like a verruca, doesn't it? But yeah, it's a bit of crust. I think that's the best way to describe it. And I think I'd feel too much of a Burke asking Graham Musprat if the real Bulleid leader ever had a crust, so I think it's safe to assume that that is not supposed to be there. And I'm going to stop talking about it now, because I'll be honest, it's making me feel very unwell indeed looking at that. The finish on some of the moulded parts is awful as well. We've got a real orange peel, sort of grainy looking texture to it. It's just not befitting of a highly expensive and supposedly premium model. Right, missing parts. We're missing a lamp bracket here because they're not properly fitted. As you can see, they're fitted at all sorts of different angles, and this one's loose. In fact, I've had to put that one back on. I'm not putting any glue on this thing. I'm keeping it exactly as is because I do intend to send it back. Vacuum pipe on this end, clearly very loose. That's no good. And of course, we don't need anything else other than the loose wheel to call this a poor quality model. But yeah, it does have that. And like I say, online there are lots of similar reports, so that seems to be a widespread issue. So all in all, it's such a pity that this is yet another model that's been ruined by KR Models, because it's a fascinating prototype, one that deserved a good model, and yet all of the issues and the lack of scrupulous research and the quality problems and everything else that has happened has just completely ruined this, which is such a pity. And I think behind all of the problems, there is the evidence of a seriously cool and unique model. And it does have aspects that I really like, but like I say, all of the issues just zap any enjoyment that there would be from this. But anyway, let's start taking a close look at what this does have. So the finish is certainly better than the fell. The fell was full gloss and it just looked ridiculous. They've toned this down a little bit so that the finish is more of a satin finish. I like that. Again, I'm not convinced that the body should be silver though. You know, if a model is listed as photographic grey, it should be grey and not silver, but maybe I'm just a bit pedantic. We've got the early British Railways crest, which has been done nicely. That looks absolutely fine, and we've got the running number applied below there. There's also the running number applied on the ends of the model too, which looks interesting. We've also got lining around the wheels, which is actually really lovely. It just makes the wheels stand out a little bit. More's the pity because they're wrong, but if they were right, that would look lovely, I reckon. Now, the side of the model, as you can see, is extremely basic. There's very, very little in the way of separately fitted parts, which calls the price into question, I suppose, because compared with the Mercura scale locos that we've seen, which were far cheaper than this and yet far more complex, demonstrate that models like this don't need to cost £185. And the fact that this did cost £185 and it hasn't been done properly is entirely unforgivable, I think. But anyway, there I go, I'm ranting again. So the bogies are fascinating, they really are. We'll look at this one on this side because it's got the most detail. So yeah, there are 3 steam cylinders here to drive the wheels by chain, obviously not in model form, but in real life. And so as a result, we've got this really interesting casing outside the wheels. We've got all sorts of different detail, which has been separately fitted and applied, some of it messily, but it's there nonetheless. So yeah, absolutely fascinating. We've got the separately fitted ladders on here as well, which don't look too bad. Yeah, those are okay. And around the front of the bogies, you can see what I assume are the 3 cylinders there. So yeah, it's a really, really interesting model to look at. And in fact, there is quite a bit of detail on the underframe, to be fair, as you can see. Around the ends of the model, again, there's a fair bit more detail here. We've got the wire handrails, which are separately fitted, and that's an improvement, I suppose, over the fell, which had sort of cheap, wobbly plastic handrails, so that looks a little bit better. Like I've said, we've got lamp irons on the end. There are route indicator discs for you to fit onto these, but they're so loosely fitted and wonky that that's not really recommended. We do have a wiper on the glazed windows there. As you can see, that's reasonably fine. And also what I assume is a steam whistle over the windows there. In terms of cab detail, you really can't see into the cabs that well. There's no windows on the side, for example, it's just the front windows. I don't think there's any real cab detail inside here. I'm certainly not seeing anything decorated, although there are seats on the inside. The other interior would be over here where this door is. You can see we've got glazing. but it's clear that there is no detail behind that glazing. In fact, we can see the chassis block behind that window there. And again, for £185 for a model now released in 2025, frankly, you would just expect better, wouldn't you? Right, up on the top, we've got several different details. The safety valves are turned metal and separately fitted, so that looks pretty good. We've also got the chimney, I'm assuming that's going to be the chimney there, which is set down into the body casing. We've also got a few other bits of details. This pipe though, for instance, appears to have been fitted and then painted because the underside of it is just black, the colour of the plastic. Yeah, that's not great, is it? Why don't we paint the details before applying them, or paint them better if they were painted first? Finally, and I almost forgot, we do have sprung buffers, which are made of metal. So yeah, a bit like putting lipstick on a pig, and it certainly isn't going to save the model from my scathing review, but it's certainly better to see sprung buffers than to not. So there you have it, that is an overview of the new Bulleid leader by KR Models. Now, have they learned their lessons from the likes of the Fell? No, they haven't. Poor research, poor build quality, poor attention to detail, and unfortunately that has spoilt this model. Right, let's get this down onto the track, and I'm not looking forward to this. Ordinarily, I'd say I'm really looking forward to seeing this run, but that would be a lie in this case, because more likely it's going to reach a curve or a point and derail immediately because of its loose and wonky wheel. That's very disappointing too, but we'll see what happens. I'll give it a run because why not? It's here. Here we go. Well folks, there it is down onto the track, and aren't I lucky? £185 and over 2 years of waiting, and this is what I get. Yes, lucky, lucky me. Anyway, I've already filmed the initial testing and running in, performance. I'll show you all that in just a second. After that, I took a look at the mechanism, and that's what I want to talk about now. So it appears that the base keeper plates are very difficult to remove. They're clipped on at both ends, and then there are clips between each wheel on both sides of the bogie as well. Now, usually I'd have a go at removing this to show you what's underneath, but because it looks so difficult to do, and because I intend to return this model because of its faults, I don't want to do anything that could jeopardize my chances of sending this back by voiding the warranty or whatnot. So I'm going to do this one just from the outside. It is all-wheel drive, technically. You might just be able to see this, but we've got wiper pickups going to all wheels, so it's all-wheel pickup as well. And also you can just about see that we do have proper bearings fitted to the axles. So from a mechanism point of view, it's very standard and good quality. So I like that, less so with the serviceability. Body removal, well, this was a bit tricky, but only because of the inadequate instructions. No diagram showing exactly where the clips were, so I had to figure it out myself with the glue spreaders. So it turns out there are 4 clips, and these are towards the ends of the model, and with these disengaged you can get the body off quite easily. So inside we've got the heavy die-cast chassis, which is seriously heavy. Again, over 600 grams for this is an awful lot. And yet we've got a surprisingly small motor here to drive a loco that is this heavy. Also 2 large flywheels. So yeah, small motor, doesn't look dreadfully substantial, and I will give you a bit of a spoiler here. This motor really struggles to move this loco. The loco by itself, let alone with any rolling stock. And after a while of running, this motor is noticeably warm to the touch. In fact, to the point where you touch the outside of the body and you can feel the warmth. So yeah, don't have much confidence in that. There's a lot of unused space in this loco. A larger motor should not have been out of the question here. Anyway, here's a better look at the cab detail, because I did a terrible job of showing that earlier. Yeah, there's nothing really to speak of here. No controls or anything. We do have the seat and then the kind of door behind the seat, but nothing else. So very basic cab detail. And yet we do have cab lights here. So on digital, if you want to switch those on, you can illuminate the lack of detail in the cab. What a luxury. And then there's this, there's an LED above the cab on the top of the circuit board, and there's a little light channel which allows that to illuminate the upper headlights at each end of the model. So that's pretty good. And then down below in front of where the cab is, you've got these light boxes with the various head and tail LEDs too. So yeah, we do have full lighting here. There's even a 1000 microfarad capacitor here, which I assume is here to smooth the lighting output. And sure enough, we don't get flickering with the lighting, which is good. And then, weirdly, we've got the Plux22 DCC socket, which is located underneath the circuit board. Yeah, weird. So if you want to chip this or do anything to the decoder, you've got to unscrew the circuit board and remove it. Now, again, I've seen enough locos of this kind of form factor to know that this is not strictly necessary. With a slightly better design, I think this could have been avoided. But yeah, that's kind of the story with this whole thing, isn't it? And I'm pretty sure we've also got a pair of pre-fitted speakers here as well. There's certainly something wired up in the speaker enclosures. And if so, that would make DCC fitting these with sound very easy. They seem to be quite large speakers as well, so with the right quality sound files, I reckon the sound on this could sound pretty good. And then in terms of the gauging, obviously I didn't try and gauge the faulty axle, there's no point. The rest of the wheels came in with a back-to-back of between 13.9 and 14.3, so some are okay. 14.3, that's pretty close to the standard of 14.4. The 13.9 ones though, yeah, that's too far out if you ask me. Half a millimetre, not really adequate. So gauging, not the best. I suppose it's better than too tight, but even so on points, that's not great. But yeah, overall mechanism not too bad. One or two silly choices, I would say, but overall the basics are there. The actual performance though, okay, well, it's a mixed bag, but I'll show you rather than tell you about it. So let me jump back in time and you can see how it went. Okay, moment of truth then. Is it going to limp along with its loose wheel, or will I not be able to properly demonstrate this? Well, let's see. Have we got power to this at all? It'll be a miracle if so, I feel. Oh, we do. Okay, it works. It's moving anyway. Doesn't sound very happy. That's 50% speed. Lord, is that normal? I mean, it's not been running yet, to be fair. It does seem to be getting quicker. Okay. Right, so yeah, I will run this in, obviously, before finally judging this. But yeah, first impressions, it does seem to be a reasonably smooth runner. Yeah, give it that. Bit of a strange noise coming from it, but that could just be the dodgy wheel, to be fair. Yeah, it's a lot slower in reverse, though. That's 50% in reverse. And this is 50% forwards. Okay, well, whatever. In terms of lighting, we've got red tail lights which come on the left and right, and then in the forwards direction we've got all of the lights coming on, reasonably bright, nice and noticeable. That looks good. The cabs do have lights fitted, but they do not appear to be working on analog. Let's have a look then and see what the torque is like. Is there any power in this mechanism? Let's see. No, not really. Barely able to turn its wheels. Maybe that will improve with running in. Sorry, I'm laughing at the strange ticking noise it's making. Maybe it's a bomb. Maybe that's what this is all about. Anyway, can it crawl straight out of the box? Let's see. Easing up. Oh, it can. Yeah, quite easily. And that's with a lame wheel. So, yeah, that looks pretty good. And a smooth acceleration. Yeah, that's not bad. So, yeah, performance-wise, at least on the straight, without points, seems to be all right. Let's just try it in reverse with a crawl. Easing it up very slowly. Yeah. It's very able to do that. So mechanically, well, apart from the glaring mechanical issue with it, but yeah, in terms of performance, it does seem capable of doing a decent run. At least on the straight. I don't think I'm going to be able to give a fair assessment of how this runs on curves and points and such, just because of the fault with the wheel. I will do it, I'll run it, and if we get away with it, then great, but I don't think it would be fair for me to claim that whatever result I get from doing that is going to be typical of these models, but yeah, like I say, we'll certainly give that a try. Okay, so if I can, I'm going to run this in. If one of the wheels drops off in the process, then so be it. At least I suppose that'll be amusing. So here we go, half power, let's give it a shot. Okay. Here it comes to the curve, where it's slowed down. Oh dear. Marvellous. Just as I was starting to say there was something good about this Loco, it does this. Oh, what a struggle. Now, to be fair, like I say, it's got a faulty wheel, so take that with a pinch of salt. If you get one of these without a faulty wheel, perhaps it will handle curves far better than mine does. And you know, perhaps it's nothing to do with the wheels, perhaps a good run-in will fix this and make it the perfect performer around curves. Something tells me I doubt that's going to happen, but I'm happy to be proved wrong. So, with some trepidation, and I'll probably test the smoke alarm before I do, let's run this in for 30 minutes in each direction, and then we'll come back. If it's still working, if it still hasn't done away with one of its own wheels, I'll couple it up to some rolling stock and see how it hauls. And then before I return it to KR Models in a coffin-shaped box, we'll see if I can finish the review. But yeah, we will see. Right, talk to you in a second. Alright folks, well that is running in complete. And to be fair, and I don't have very many positive things to say about this model, but there is one. This did not derail. It's got a wheel that is entirely loose on its axle. It's got no traction to it because it is that loose. And yet it has not caused any derailments. I've not tried it over points and such, that might be a different story. But yeah, I have actually been able to run this in without that front wheel causing any problems. So that's the good news, amazing. I don't know how that's possible, but I'm glad it is because it means I can continue with the review. The bad news is the dreadful slowing down on the curves has continued. The body is noticeably warm, suggesting that the motor is struggling. And the coupling that I pulled out of the bag is inadequate as well. Far too much slop on the coupling hook, which means that I predict it's going to seriously struggle to couple up to rolling stock, but we shall see. Anyway, the tractive effort came in at 0.83 newtons, which should be about 46 coaches on straight and level track. But unfortunately, there is still no torque in this mechanism, up to 50. Yes, it makes a lot of noise, but its bark is a lot worse than its bite because it's not turning its wheels. Well, it is very, very slowly, but it's not what you'd call powerful. Again, now we know why, that very puny motor. And I think that's partly the reason why it struggles so much on the curves. That and the badly gauged wheels, possibly not helped by this. But we'll see how it goes on the curves with some rolling stock in a little while. So I've set up some Mark 1 coaches. Yeah, heaven help the leader when it's got those to haul as well as itself. But anyway, let's test the performance again. Let's see if it's any more sort of even in its forwards and backwards speeds. So let's go forwards at 50%. Sounds a bit like a freewheeling bicycle. But yeah, that's fine. In reverse, with some running in, I would say that has evened out quite a bit. It seems to be about the same speed as in forwards now, which is good. And the one good thing about the performance, except for the fact that it doesn't derail, but you know, that's not to be commended, is it? That's just the bare minimum, frankly, is the crawl, or was the crawl. So let's see if that's still good. Forwards. Yeah. So how everything can be so diabolical except the crawl, I don't know. But that's legitimately beautifully smooth. And you can smoothly accelerate with it as well. So yeah, on the straight, if you don't look at the wheel that isn't turning properly, and you don't try and couple it up to anything, it's almost easy to believe that this is a beautiful model that runs so nicely. Yeah, that's legitimately good. The lighting looks good. Yeah, if only model railways were straight. If only no curves were used, this would be the perfect model. And maybe on DCC, you know, the decoder motor control will allow this to take curves better than on my controller. But I'm using the same analog Gauge Master controller that I always use, and I have plenty of other Coco Locos that can handle these tests far better than this is. So I'm comfortable blaming the Loco and not my setup or anything. Whether this performance is typical of all of these Bulleid leaders or just mine, I can't say. I've only tested this one, so feel free to take that as you will. Anyway, let's attempt a coupling. So reverse. Wish me luck. Let's see how smoothly I can do this. hopefully quite smoothly. Here we go. Amazing slow start. Too slow really. A bit more. There we go. Alright, I can't see the hooks, so give me a shout when they've coupled. Ah, that's not how pre-recorded video works. Anyway, there we go. I heard the bump. And we have it. So successful coupling. Well, the Hornby hook has engaged because the KR Models one flops to the side like that. It actually hasn't engaged, so let's do that. Yeah, not great, is it? When even Hornby are showing you up. Blimey, lads. Anyway, here we go. Let's go up to 50% speed. There we go. Off it goes, the freewheeling bicycle. 6 coaches. Well, for now, on the straight and level track, they are moving. Right, so on the middle line, we've got another KR Models masterpiece. Did you detect the slight hint of sarcasm there? Just bear with it a little while, it's a slow one. It's the felt. Hard to say really whether the leader is better or worse than the fell. I would say worse, but perhaps for different reasons. So there's that. And then on the inside line I have what is without a doubt the best of the KR Models locos. It's the GT3, the first KR Models loco. Why it's been downhill since then, I don't know. But yeah, this one I actually quite like. It wasn't entirely perfect, but yeah, it was nothing like today's loco. Anyway, see which other early/unusual steam locomotives you can spot, and we'll catch up with the leader. Alright, 4th radius. It takes a special kind of turd to slow down this badly on 4th radius. Goodness me. And here we go, bit of speed there on the short straight. 2nd radius. Wow. Let's hope nobody's got 2nd radius, folks. Look at that, and then the other bit of 2nd radius. Amazing. The Bulleid leader. Leading what, I suppose? The march to the landfill. So, I'm trying to process how I feel about this model, and I'm going to try and tell you in the most succinct way I possibly can. So, having considered all of the facts and having properly looked at this loco now, this thing is a total and utter cock-up. It is a prize turd. What on earth is going on here? This is so bad that I would actually say to KR Models, please stop. Don't bother, just stop. Leave models like this to the professionals who know what they're doing, who are willing to put in the time and expertise and research into making these models properly. You know, KR Models, they say, we dare to build, or some other cliche like that. Well, they certainly do dare to build, and then they dare to peddle off what they've dared to build on poor paying customers. And I, for one, at this point, would really prefer that they didn't. Now, I know people are going to say, well, if you don't like a model or if you don't like a manufacturer, just stop buying from them. Well, I say, well, it's not as simple as that, is it? Because now if another better manufacturer comes along, who wants to create a Bulleid leader, they'll see that KR Models has done it, and they'll say to themselves, well, the model's been done, it's a niche prototype, there isn't going to be demand for a second model of this. And what does that mean for us modelers? Well, it means that we don't get a decent Bulleid leader. It means we get this instead. So yeah, when I say stop to KR Models, I mean it, because all that time waiting, all that money, and this is what's delivered. Yeah, it's awful. So, I don't know. I've got other KR Models locomotives pre-ordered. That was a mistake. Yeah, this is not something I recommend you do. I mean, the standard of this locomotive is not just a little subpar, it's not just the odd issue. It is very, very poor on the whole, in my opinion. And so, for this locomotive and this manufacturer, frankly, I have to say my advice is to steer clear of them, at least until future locomotives are released and plenty of people have got them and have given them the thumbs up, because this is too much money to be wasting. So yeah, we'll see. I'm going to start a return, see how the customer service is with KR Models, and hopefully when there's good news on that, i.e. the model's gone and I don't have to look at it anymore, I will give you an update and let you know how that went. But for now, there it is, ladies and gentlemen. After a very long wait, the Bulleid leader. And now then, some ratings for the frankly dreadful new Bulleid leader by KR Models. Now, to be fair, some of the issues I've experienced today may not be typical of every example. So perhaps the way that this has been assembled, the visible glue, the wonky parts, the wobbly loose wheel, maybe there will be examples without that. I'm yet to hear of very many that didn't have wobbly loose wheels, but you know, this is something that you might get lucky, you might get unlucky over. There are things though, I mean, the accuracy, the issues with the unrealistic wheels, the way that these have been painted, the coaloads, these are common to every example as far as I can tell. So really, even if you get a perfect example, it's still not really adequate in my opinion. So with that, I've given it a 2-star on the level of detail. Inaccurate wheels, poor cab detail, no controls or anything like that, even though there's lighting to illuminate the lack of detail. Buffer beams not correctly painted as far as I can tell. The loco colour is more of a silver than a photographic grey, and the coal load is very unrealistic and kind of embarrassingly bad as well. On the plus side, it does have sprung buffers, it does have lights, and it does have quite a bit of detail in the way of separate parts around the bogies and buffer beams and such, as much as a lot of it hasn't been fitted correctly. The lamp brackets is one big thing I'm thinking of. Performance then, I've given 2.5 star, which does seem a little bit generous, but don't forget, on a straight piece of track, the performance is pretty good. It's nice and smooth, it can crawl really excellently. That is where the good stuff ends though, really. Yeah, there's no torque whatsoever in this thing, so the moment you couple it up to rolling stock, the moment you send it over an open point or a curve, it slows right down to a crawl. Now, I'm not saying that every example is going to be like this. Maybe there's a motor issue with my example, maybe it's because of the loose wheel that it's doing that, I don't know. But rating the example I've got, 2.5 star is the very best I can do. Pulling power though, thanks to the weight of the loco, came in at 0.83 newtons, which is good, but bear in mind when I measured it, when I did that test, yeah, the wheels were not turning, the motor was virtually stalled. This is not the sort of thing you want to be doing to this. So it did come out with a score of 46 coaches on straight and level track. In reality though, it won't be able to do anything close to that, but anyway, 0.83, that's what I got. Mechanism then is 3-star. Now there are some good aspects to the mechanism. All-wheel drive, or it would have if it was built properly with all the wheels stuck on right. All-wheel pickup as well. It's got proper bearings on the driving axles, and the fact that it's got proper lighting, capacitor on board, pre-fitted speakers, all of this is good to see. What lets it down is the serviceability. Very, very difficult to get the base keepers off, for instance. I didn't even try to do it because it looked like a nightmare. Lack of proper instructions, no detail at all in terms of care and maintenance and the future of your model, that's not great. The DCC socket is on the bottom of the circuit board for some reason, very strange indeed, and quite a small motor for such a heavy loco, and as we see it does struggle quite badly. Also, the wheels and the gauging wasn't quite right. Even if we ignore the faulty axle, we've still got quite a large range of different gauges across this model, and I think the one's gauged at 13.9, that's a little bit too slack for my liking. That brings us on to quality there. Now, on the plus side, it is a heavy model, 627 grams, that's quite a lot, and the paintwork and decoration's pretty good. I'm not really convinced on the colour, and obviously the buffer beam's not painted correctly as far as I can tell, but the actual way that the decoration's been applied is good, so we'll give it that. On the downside though, we've got the visible crust, we've got the glue, we've got the detail parts which are loose or missing, i.e. the lamp brackets or the vacuum pipes. We've obviously got the loose wheel as well, which is just entirely unforgivable. How all these models with loose wheels passed any sort of quality control, I have no idea. Why this issue wasn't picked up during a sampling phase, again, don't ask me, I don't know. That leads us on to value then, finally, at £185, and I've given that 2-star. Now, to be fair, I think if this model was built properly and it had been properly researched so that the thing looked at least halfway accurate, then that wouldn't have been too much of an unreasonable price for what is a very niche model. But obviously, in reality, this thing is rubbish. It's riddled with issues, it's not accurate, it's not well researched. Yeah, it's so much to pay for what is so poor. Again, this is not existing in a vacuum. This is existing in a world where we've got Hornby, where we've got Accurascale, where we've got Dapol and Bachmann producing excellent models at this kind of price point. Well, maybe not Hornby, but certainly Accurascale. So we know what's possible at this kind of price point, and what was delivered here, at least my example, was entirely inexcusable. So overall, that is a score of 5.01 out of 10. Been a while since I've given something as low a score as half marks, but it's deserved. That is a grade of F. I would fail this Loco for these reasons, and I would not recommend it as a result. And into the logbook it goes, where it is top place. Imagine that. Well, the moment I review anything else in 00, that will no longer be the case, I'm sure. So yeah, very disappointing. We've waited so long for this model, and for this to have been delivered at the end of that wait is one of the bigger anticlimaxes I think I've ever experienced in this hobby. It's just a real shame. Well, there you have it then, folks. That was my review of the KR Models Bulleid Leader. So first of all, please let me know what you think about this. Do you agree? Do you think I've been too harsh? Do you think I've not been harsh enough? If you've got a Bulleid Leader too, let me know what your experience was. Also, obviously, I want to leave the full right to reply to KR Models, so if they want to get in touch, they know how to find me. If they've got an explanation for how such a shoddy model could have passed into the hands of a customer, I'd love to hear it. I would really, really love to hear it. And how, after all this time, this model has been released in this state. Why wasn't advice taken? Why wasn't research done? It just boggles the mind, especially given what a cracking job other manufacturers do with their models. So yeah, massively disappointed. Very, very disappointed, but it is what it is. It's not all terrible. There are some good aspects, and if you want to hear what those are, jump back through the video. You can hear me talk about those. But yeah, on the whole, a big disappointment. So thanks for watching, folks. I'll be back soon with more reviews, hopefully of better models than this. Don't think that's difficult to do. But yeah, thank you very much for watching again, and I'll catch you on the next one. Cheers, folks.